went unlisted. I'm just doing a quick sound check. I'm back from Chicago, back from Detroit. I want to do a quick sound check, make sure everybody can hear me, and then we're going to jump on to the channel itself. Hold on one second. We're good. Okay, actually, we're going to we're going to make this public. Publish. Okay, we are live and we are for the public. Welcome. I hope everybody is doing well. Let's give it a few minutes. Let's wait to see who joins. I missed the Monday live streams because I was rocking out in beautiful Detroit and then beautiful Chicago, and then I returned to freezing temperatures. Harmony Lodge is one of my lodges. I'm a member of 3 Masonic Lodges. Harmony is one of them. I mean, Harmony is a very common name for, Harmony is a very common name for Masonic Lodges. There are many. I'm a member of Harmony Lodge 579, and a past master there as well. It's just the name of a Masonic Lodge. Like you have King Solomon's Lodge, Windsor Lodge, Border Cities Lodge, Trinity Lodge, Great Western, etc., etc. From Catskill. Where's Catskill? But I mean, when it comes to like names of Masonic lodges, Harmony is a very common one. So it was a lot of fun. It was a really good time, Dream Seeker. Thank you for being here. I'm very tired because it was a lot of fun, but it was busy, but it was enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. I got to visit, let's see, I got to visit King Oscar's installation, which was really, really fun, which is a lodge. It's basically the start of the Masonic year in many ways for Lodge when they install their new officers, including Worshipful Master. And then I got to attend a Lodge of Instruction. I also got to attend the installation of Michigan Lodge of Research #1. In Chicago, I did, well, what's wrong, Bandit? I just saw my cat meowing. Actually, I did not get my pizza, at least deep dish. I did, however, have some pizza at the installation, at the Lodge of Instruction. Hello, Christopher Shepard. How's it going? No, it's just a name. There's no harmony, like straight. There's no harmony body, is what you call it, right? Or harmony right. It's just a name. My name is Phoenix. Hello, Phoenix. Please hit like and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. But I really enjoyed it. It was wonderful. It was an excellent weekend, as always. I've been painting a 4-foot painting for the charity. My art is a little outside the norm. It's trippy, psychedelic art. Sure. No, that's fine. I mean, we always want to try something different. We always want to try something new to display at the Masonic building. So, yeah, it could have just went defunct. We call it going dark because they didn't have sufficient numbers of membership to maintain it, or they could have had financial difficulties, or who knows, it could have just decided, if the lodge population declined sufficiently, it could have just been like the population of the town. They could have decided to move to a new location and meet somewhere different. Christopher, my name is Cameron, and this channel is called Square and Compass Promotion. We talk about Freemasonry. We promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it was located, as well as provide stories of Masonic interest. Today is International Holocaust Day, so I am going to be talking about Freemasonry and the Holocaust. Freemasonry was targeted by Nazi Germany, as well as, obviously many other groups, primarily Judaism or Jewish people. But yeah, we have, Freemasonry is also targeted by the by Nazis, and we're going to talk about that. Okay, so that happens. Underground Thomas, that can happen for a variety of reasons. Oh, we got some hearts. I think that might be Smokey the Clown. I would love to see that. I mean, Underground Thomas. If you want to send it to me by email, please do so. info@squareandcompass.ca would be much appreciated. And then, yeah, Dream Seeker, once you're done with your painting, you can drop it off. We can meet. I can maybe send you your coin that way in person, since you are a Patreon, and I still got to get it to you. Yes, I am a Freemason, Roy the Human Billboard. Now that I'm back in Windsor, my plan is to mail it to you. Well, nine beats. I don't know what you're up to, but don't continue being up to it, I guess is what I would say, if you got a cop arrested you. Yeah, we'll organize it. I'll talk to the shrine, see how we can best organize it, if we do a raffle or a draw or bids. Um, Roy the Human Billboard, to be one, ask one. What you do is you need to find a Masonic Lodge in your area and approach them and express your interest in joining and tell them why you want to join. So you do not. Freemasonry does not worship the devil. Um, so no, you do not. Um, in fact, Freemasonry is not a religion at all, so there is no worship of any being, entity, devil, or anything else. So, despite what some conspiracy theorists may tell you, uh, well, if anybody did plant drugs on you, then you should inform the authorities of what happened and talk to your lawyer. But Freemasonry is not a religion, Roy, so you need to keep that in mind. But welcome, thank you for being here. I hope, Roy, you will also hit the like button and the subscribe button. That would be very kind of you and very helpful for this channel, which joining and becoming a member of this channel doesn't make you a Freemason, but it does help support my efforts to promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant in the communities which it's located. Thank you, Roy. It's much appreciated. Well, you beat the case, so that's what matters. I'm very sorry if, that happened to you, and I hope and I, you know, uh, hope and wish that you are on a good track. Yes, a higher power, that doesn't mean a particular higher power or a particular religion. So, for example, that doesn't mean you need to be, you know, Christian or Buddhist or Jewish or Muslim. It's not a particular religious faith. Rather, it can be any one of those faiths, as well as spiritual, Hindu, Sikh, indigenous, etc., etc. Xavier Perez, please hit that like and subscribe button. I'm 2 likes away from 3,370 subs, so help me get there. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Consider doing a 99-cent super chat. That helps out big time as well. Let's go to a bit more time. Let's see who joins. They should be. Not every lodge has all three, but they should be. We also have, I've seen eagle feathers used in some cases for brethren who are, let's say, indigenous. I've even seen, I was told or heard of stones being used for Wiccan Freemasons, Wiccan, as a totem of their faith. It is very cold, Bartholomew. It is very, very cold. Well, that's all I talk about, John Holmes. I mean, is there anything in particular you want to know? The first hour, I just answer questions from the stream as they come in. I don't have any specific topics. And then the second, or the after that, is when I tend to focus on more specific topics, such as today, Freemasonry and the Holocaust, because Freemasons were targeted, and today's International Holocaust Remembrance Day. But Freemasonry or Freemasons were targeted during the Holocaust, along with several other, obviously, along with many other groups. What's the difference between Scottish Rite and Prince Hall? Well, Prince Hall is a Masonic organization recognized in most states, most jurisdictions, founded by Prince Hall. And it was initially founded for basically black men because unfortunately in, 17, it was 84, 1776, through basically, you know, at the time there was unfortunately discrimination. Freemasonry does not discriminate, but that does not mean individual Freemasons who misunderstand Freemasonry will not discriminate. And unfortunately, you needed to have an organization that ensured that black men could become Freemasons. Prince Hall was started as a result of that. We have Prince Hall here in Ontario. It is recognized by my Grand Lodge. So I can visit their lodges, they visit mine. Scottish Rite is an independent body within quote unquote regular Freemasonry. Um, it has three regular degrees, but very often most Masons will join it after they get their third degree, and will start with the fourth degree in Lodge of Perfection. Um, die, well, I mean, I like me. Well, I mean, not every Mason got it wrong, right? Prince Hall was hold on just one second. Let me get the exact date right. 1784, yeah. So what happened is Prince Hall was a black gentleman who applied to join a Masonic Lodge in Boston. He was denied admission because of his race. He ended up joining a Masonic Lodge organized um, through Ireland. And eventually, he received a charter to start his own lodge out of the Grand Lodge of England, September 29th, 1784. Right? And so basically what happened is unfortunately some Masons at the time, not every Mason, not the Masons, for example, out of the Grand Lodge of England or Ireland, but some Masons were racist at the time and discriminated against Prince Hall, which resulted in his forming his own unique organization, Prince Hall Freemasonry, which is a wonderful part of our Masonic order, and a wonderful part of what it is to be a Freemason. My collar is flimsy, I'll give you that. I never bother taking care of my collar. You'd think at some point I would. Um, but there's always going to be, I've talked about this before, a shadow that falls, quote unquote, between the implementation or between the idea and the implementation of the idea, or between the practice of something and the best ideals of that same thing. So unfortunately, when in Boston they denied admission to Prince Hall, they were demonstrating the space or the shadow between the ideals of Freemasonry, which is about universal tolerance for all, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, politics. They were demonstrating the gap between that as um, an ideal and the actual practice, because human beings are imperfect, and sometimes we don't live up to what true Freemasonry is. Do I think Saren? I think the better question is, will you hit the like and subscribe button? And I would say, yes, please hit the like and subscribe button. Help me get just a couple more subs. It would be very, very helpful. What do I think about South? I mean, I don't know anything about South Africa corruption. I know about Freemasonry in South Africa, um, right? Freemasonry within South Africa is actually a really cool history, a really cool story, because South Africa is a port city, right? Or a port city is a country which has a lot of ports. It makes sense that Freemasonry would make its way there along some of these port towns. I think like Johannesburg is hold on one second. South Africa capital city. Um, Cape Town, excuse me. Um, Cape Town, South Africa, being right on the water. It makes sense that Freemasonry would arrive there the same way it arrived so many places on naval ships or merchant ships. Um, all right, Di, I have to put you in timeout. Again, kind of boring a little bit. All right, he's in timeout. So, but in terms of South African corruption, that's a political question. I have no idea. Again, Freemasonry is not political. So, the most important thing to keep in mind about Freemasonry is whatever's happening within South Africa and any concerns regarding corruption, political or kind of economic. A lot of different Masons may have different ideas on it, different thoughts on it, because I don't know any of the details about it, right? So I can't say. But I'm sure every Mason may have his own views on it, especially those from South Africa, including, for example, Cape Town, the capital. I mean, in relative numbers, Sarah, compared to where it started, yes, but in terms of recent history, it's been declining in membership, certainly in North America, since 1959. So it grew from like 1717 through to um, it grew from like 1717 through to let's say 1959 around the world. Then you start to see a decline in membership numbers in North America, similar to other civic organizations or civil organizations, which all of which have been experiencing a decline in membership and a decline in number. Do you think people can systemically save the world? Pilgrims pondering ministry. Um, Well, I mean, I think we need systems of some sort. Hello, Dad. I love you. Hope you're doing well. I think we need systems of some sort in order to. It's not about saving the world, it's just maintaining the world. I mean, it's very hard to organize any type of collective action without some type of system in place, or even to have any type of governance of any sort, laws, regulations, trade, economy, without some type of system. So, I mean, I think it's also just human nature, right? We are as humans kind of hardwired to want or to desire to create systems. It's just in our nature. Bob, I know I look like Beavis. Please hit that like and subscribe button. I'd very much appreciate it. Yeah, Prince Hall Freemasonry is again, it's a valuable part of the order. It's a valuable part of being, it's a valuable part of this Masonic family that we have, and I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful to call them my brothers. And like I said, they've added a great deal of history, brotherhood, tradition, honor. They do a ton of charity work, all to Freemasonry. So nothing but respect for them and to them. Um, we do not create leaders, at least when you say, do we create leaders in a country? We do not create leaders in a direct sense. Strategy master, right? Meaning, when you say that, I'm not sure if what you mean by that is, do we like pick the leaders for a country, which we don't. Certainly, I think Freemasonry, if you are paying attention to it, it does have or instill certain skills and lessons that can be very valuable for a leader, right? Amongst other things, it instills skills in the ability to run and organize an administrative meeting, to mediate between a variety of different opinions, to work with those with whom you may disagree. Public speaking, conflict resolution, memorization, those are all skills that can become valuable to a leader. And also, I think Freemasonry instills a certain level of civic pride, as well as attracts membership, which likely already has a certain level of civic pride, meaning, people who are more likely to be interested in becoming leaders may already be themselves Freemasons, um, or may likely be Freemasons as well as ending up trying to get into politics or leadership roles. I mean, going throughout history, right? George Washington, famously, many presidents of the United States, 15 out of 45. The first Prime Minister of Canada was a Freemason. Jose Rizal in the Philippines, Garibaldi in Italy. Simon Bolivar in Venezuela, all these guys were Freemasons. Yes, it's very chilly, and now we're getting some snow as well. I look outside my window. I got back in this morning from Chicago. It was freezing cold. I remember thinking to myself, I left and I come back and it's an Arctic tundra. I don't think so, is the Pinocchio story. The only way I could see Strategy Master, the Pinocchio story being related to Freemasonry is if the author of it, I don't even know who authored it or if Disney authored it originally, was a Freemason. Now I know that Walt Disney was, I believe anyways, was a Freemason. So there's that connection. But in terms of the practical, um, I'm based on what I understand about the story, there's no like Masonic themes to it. I guess the theme of growth, as you grow up, as you grow in age and wisdom, is a metaphor for the journey Pinocchio goes on from kind of an innocent creature to being a human. Maybe there's some arguments in terms of like Freemasonry encourages the same type of growth in one's own life through the rituals and the degrees and encourages self-reflection and growth as an individual. But that's a pretty tenuous stretch myself. Um, I have no idea who penned it. BNWO Chud. I have no idea. So maybe the author is a Freemason. Who knows? No, but I think within Freemasonry, not just within Freemasonry, within all of life, right? One of the things that you experience is as you grow, innocence gets replaced with experience. I think that's true throughout all of life. I don't think we ever stop growing. Um, you learn more about the world, you learn more about yourself, you learn more about both the good and the bad parts of the world through things like self-reflection, experience, travel, visitation. And I think maybe in some ways you could argue Freemasonry, the journey from going from an entered apprentice to a master mason, maybe in some ways mirrors that journey. You start out being very innocent towards Freemasonry in that you know very little about it. Um, and as you grow within the craft and learn more, you gain more experience, you become a master mason. Sarah, hello, Gooey. Good to see you. If someone comes to you and says he wants to be a Freemason, my advice is always don't rush it, take your time, and find the closest Masonic lodge in your area. Um, right? Because I can't make him a Freemason. No individual can make anyone else a Freemason. It requires a Masonic lodge to do that, unless you want to count, let's say, Mason on site, but that's a Grand Master thing, and that's incredibly rare. He needs to find a Masonic lodge. He needs to find one in his area. So my advice is always find a Masonic lodge in your area, express your interest in joining, and take your time. Don't rush it. Get to know the lodge. Let them get to know you. It can be a hard skill to learn, that's for sure. Well, I mean, we don't really make a man anything. Rather, it's up to him, right? Freemasonry does not make the man makes Freemasonry. Having said that, we certainly will teach him how to be of benefit to Freemasonry in the sense of the different offices that exist within the lodge, what the responsibilities of each one is, how, he can acquire those offices, where he starts. He becomes, for example, a steward. He may help clean up the lodge, set up the lodge, tear down the lodge. All of that stuff is very, very helpful. So you certainly learn how to be useful to the Masonic Lodge, but that's true for any organization, right? If you join a football team, you're going to learn very quickly how to be useful to the football team, based on the position you play, practice. Even if you're, working behind the scenes, you're like the water boy. That's still a valuable and important responsibility, right? So you need to learn how to be responsible in those ways. Well, no, they haven't heat at the moment. Please hit like and subscribe. We are one subscriber away from 3,370 subs, so help a brother out. Let's give it a few more minutes. Wait to see who joins. Again, I was going to talk about Freemasonry and the Holocaust because Today is International Holocaust Day. There's been a few quotes about it. Let me see if I can find them for you. And tomorrow, I may be actually doing my stream using my webcam. Well, I mean, both. Obviously, primarily, if you're talking about your role as a Freemason, that is first and foremost a role within a Masonic lodge. You're a Masonic brother. You need to be part of a Masonic lodge. However, you can, again, as a Freemason, develop certain skills, abilities, understandings, all of which can help you in the outside world, right? You'll learn skills and things like religious tolerance, political tolerance, kindness, teamwork, conflict resolution, um, all of these kind of moral qualities that Freemasonry helps illuminate are of benefit to you in the quote unquote outside world. Um, while I am a Freemason, I would not call myself a professional LARPer. I'm trying to be a professional YouTuber, so please hit the like and subscribe button. I'd very, very much appreciate it. Appreciate it, I should say. Refined by fire. It's like everything, right? One of the things about being a Freemason that you need to remember is I always tell this to people. You're a Freemason inside the lodge, you're a Freemason outside the lodge. So, especially if people know that you're a Freemason, like you talk to people about it, if you wear a ring, if you wear a shirt, whatever it is, your behaviors and your actions outside of the lodge reflect Freemasonry to others, which is why I'm always talking about the necessity of when you travel, being kind to those around you, being kind to those who help you travel, having all your paperwork ready, etc., etc. Volunteering in the community, not being a jerk, cleaning up after yourself, not littering. These are all small things, and there's a million other examples, but everything you do reflects upon the craft. So you need to be cognizant of that as a Freemason. Freemasonry is not LARPing, at least if I understand that word. Freemasonry is being part of a civic or community group organization. There are elements of it that, yeah, we represent as part of our rituals, for example, other things or historical things, historical figures, but that's the purpose of ritual. That's about creating the bonds of brotherhood through shared experience. Well, I mean, sure. I mean, I'm not a Freemason exclusively when I'm at the Masonic Lodge. I'm a Freemason 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's no, like on my dues card where it says I'm a member of the Masonic Lodge, it doesn't say like he's a member of the Masonic Lodge during the meeting hours. It's just I'm a member of a Masonic Lodge for the entirety of 24/7. Now, again, how active you choose to make that identity is up to you, right? You may be a member who chooses to never talk about Freemasonry outside of, he goes to lodge, he does he sits in lodge, he hangs out with the brothers, but he doesn't talk about it outside of that. So in which case, really, at least the impact Freemasonry has on his life is going to be less so than, let's say, someone like myself who talks about Freemasonry all the time, visits lodges every day or as many days as I can. Then for me, Freemasonry is closer to a 24-hour, if not identity, 24-hour practice. I mean, I've known several Masons who are against the vaccine. I've known some who are against vaccines in general. That always does concern me. I guess that's a political question, and every Freemason can kind of decide for himself. I'll say for me, I am pro. I'm pro getting vaccinated in general, and I've gotten vaccinated for many different things over my life. So, COVID being just one of them. We did not, KSPU. That's a myth. We within Freemasonry did not design the streets of Washington as a pentagram, a Luciferian pentagram or any other pentagram, just for the record. It's one of those Masonic conspiracy theories. Freemasons Definitely laid some cornerstones. Thank you for the LARPing funds, Mr. Keeps. Um, does the individual identity still remain strategy? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, yeah, we're all individuals. I mean, we all have our own variety of opinions on a variety of topics, right? One of the things Freemasonry teaches, as I mentioned before, is tolerance for different ideas, different beliefs, be they religious or political, uh, different histories, different languages, ethnicities. So certainly, I mean, we're at the end of the day, we're first and foremost all individuals, and then from there, we're individuals choosing to be part of this thing called Freemasonry. The thing I love about Freemasonry is it is individual, it's a common experience, but individual interpretations and individual understandings. Uh, Dispassionate Observer, they come from a variety of sources. Leo Taxil, um, was somebody who created that hoax in the 1800s. Primarily the way to think about it is wherever it started or came from, it's been spread primarily through social media misinformation. Um, and also, in some ways, Freemasonry is at fault for not pushing back against it at a variety of times, thereby allowing the conspiracy voices to reign a little bit more supreme, unfortunately. Um, Yeah, Leo Taxil, Taxil, if I'm getting his name. I mean, that wasn't even his real name, but Leo, want to make sure I'm pronouncing it or spelling it correctly. Yeah, Leo Taxil, Taxil. Um, First name Leo. Um, yeah, it wasn't his real name. The real name was Mary Joseph Gabriel Antoine Jogend Pages. So there you go. I think I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen any videos from it yet, but some people have brought it up to me. I'm kind of curious how many people are. Let me see if I can find how many people are subscribed to it out of curiosity. I mean, now again. Oh, it's actually got a full website. Um, a good website as well. Podcasts. Yeah, it looks like he's doing. Wow, he's crushing it. Good for him. People like the mystical side of Freemasonry. People like the mystical side of anything. Unfortunately, it's not really for me. So, and also, I think sometimes there can be a danger in focusing too much on the mystical side of things. It tends itself to lead more to woo, less actionable, um, less actionable steps one can take to grow Freemasonry. Was he a assassin? I don't think he was. Hold on just one second. It was John Wilkes Booth, right? John Wilkes Booth. So there's no evidence that John Wilkes Booth was a Freemason. I don't personally believe he was. I've never seen any evidence that he was. Um, Aleister Crowley was probably not a Freemason. I mean, he might have been, but he was also very likely a clandestine Freemason. Um, and I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald was a Freemason. It could be wrong. Let me double check. Um, I'm not showing any confirmation that he was a Freemason. I mean, what I would say is, I was speaking more in general to that question. You know, apparently not, according to Google. Now, again, I never looked into it one way or the other. So I cannot say for sure because I never really bothered to check. He was a member of the Knights of the Golden Circle, which is a separate organization. It was founded by George W.L. Bickley. But that's not the same as being a Freemason. All Jesuits are not Freemasons. Chaos for you. You've been spending way too much time looking at conspiracy theory nonsense online. I mean, America is a pretty great idea, even with the challenges that it's currently facing. America is a pretty great idea. Well, chaos for you. You can believe me or not believe me. That is completely within your prerogative and within your right. But you are wrong. You are incorrect. But I guess my response would be, what I would say to you is, even if there is evidence of a Freemason doing something wrong or committing a crime, Freemasonry doesn't make you a perfect individual, nor does it stop you from being an individual and a human. It's still possible to make mistakes, to mess up. Freemasonry can mess up in that it can let people in who are not good. It does not reflect on the craft. It reflects on that one individual. Well, I don't know how you could see. I don't know how you could see John Wilkes Booth. I suspect he was a little bit before your time. Um, but no, I do not know what an undeclared member is strategy. I mean, I can talk about membership in general terms because I should be respectful of people's privacy. One thing that means is I should not be telling people on this stream, like, hey, John Smith is a Freemason, he's a member of this lodge, unless they have their permission in advance, because that's just a respectful kind thing to do, which I very much believe in, by the way. I think everybody should have the right to disclose or not disclose, to disclose or not disclose whatever they want about themselves. So I can talk about my membership. I can talk about why I love Freemasonry. I can't identify other Masons without their permission. But again, I've done plenty of podcast episodes, and one of the things I do there, by its nature, is identify other Masons because I'm interviewing them about their Masonic journey. The identification is naturally a consequence of that, right? I don't know what an undeclared member is, though. I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean someone who's applied to join Freemasonry but is not yet joined? Um, well, so this is something you need to be careful of. I've said this before. A lot of Masons will try to identify other Masons if they're wearing, let's say, a ring or a shirt or some other type of, like, it's called lights, some other type of item that has Masonic insignia on it. You need to be really careful with that because just because somebody has, let's say, a ring, it doesn't mean they're automatically a Freemason. It could be that they purchased it at a store or at a pawn shop. It could be they got it from their family, right? There are a million different ways how one can get Masonic items, a shirt, whatever it is, without being a Mason. Some will say we identify them through the modes of recognition, which are ways that Freemasons can identify each other, may or may not include grips, whatever it might be. However, for that, you have to keep in mind as well, they're all on the internet right now. So some people may find them by accident or may learn what they are without being a Mason. The best way to identify the best way to identify a Freemason is asking for his dues card and asking which Grand Lodge he belongs to. Yes, Winnipeg Jets, repping the home team. This was actually given to me a friend of mine years ago. I was from Winnipeg, And I guess he either had this jacket or found or had this sweater or found this sweater, whatever it might be, and gave it to me as a gift. So it's a very comfortable sweater on days like today when it's minus a million degrees outside. It's nice to have. When I arrived in Detroit this morning from Chicago, I assure you it was absolutely freezing. So I was very grateful to get back to my place and put on this incredibly comfortable sweater, thus allowing me not to melt into a puddle of, freezing to death. I have no idea what the temperature is, but I can assure you when I got off that bus this morning in Detroit, it was crazy. And also, none of the streets were plowed and none of the sidewalks were plowed, which made it a pain to get to the next bus stop. Well, Dad, we'll keep our fingers crossed. We are going to keep our fingers crossed. Um, well, I mean, there's no requirement within Freemasonry to quote unquote declare your membership. I mean, you can choose to tell people or you can choose not to tell people. You can choose to do it in a more formal way. Like you can, if you're, let's say, a politician, you can declare it in like some type of public setting or formally. Or again, you can just tell people or you can tell nobody. All of the above is up to you. There is an issue or a question right now as to declaring membership for the Metropolitan Police. I've given my thoughts on that in the United Kingdom. But again, it's not my responsibility, nor is it my job to disclose to anyone else whether they are or are not a Freemason, right? Or whether they are a Freemason. Your membership, their membership, it is completely up to them as to who they want to tell or who they want to not tell. Um, well, maybe they'll get better. Maybe they'll get better. Fingers crossed. Again, I'm not really a follower of hockey. I'm a bad Canadian, so, but obviously I still have hometown pride, so I'd hope they would do well. Um, Spirit, oh, it's hard, but if you want to be on YouTube, one thing I've learned is you absolutely have to be patient if you want to be on YouTube. It's a big part of it, for better or worse. Please don't forget, by the way, to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'd very much appreciate it. Well, if there's no winners, if there are no losers, there are no winners. Freemasonry is definitely declining in relevance, Lobela, because its membership is declining. But when you say haven't been relevant or having been, I think what you mean is haven't been. Who are you to say? Who is anybody to say what makes somebody relevant or not relevant, right? It's relevant to me. It's relevant to all the people that, would be alone, would be without friends and in some ways family, if not for Masonic Lodge meetings. It's relevant to all the charities that receive benefit and funds through Masonic donations. It's relevant to all the people who are lonely and find a sense of brotherhood and purpose, right? Freemasonry is as relevant to people as they so choose it to be. In terms of within a community, I think we have work to do to grow Freemasonry within communities and grow the relevance of Freemasonry within communities and countries. And I'm working on that. The whole point of this channel, right, is to promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it was located. Um, and just this weekend, I saw a great example of that relevance in Chicago, where a Masonic Lodge was supporting a small business, which means Freemasonry is very relevant to the economy of that community in Chicago, if nothing else, or that neighborhood. I am Canadian. Maybe Lobela. I mean, no, it won't be totally gone globally, because it's actually growing in some parts of the world. It's doing very well, for example, in China. It's doing very well in Brazil. It's doing very well in Cuba, to my understanding. In North America, it's struggling, but we'll see. You put time and effort and work into it, who knows? I mean, for Freemason and Mason, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Are Freemason values very different? I mean, n- I don't know. Like Masonic values, you would hope in a healthy society would be integrated within the society at large. So things like tolerance, kindness, respect for different religions, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, um, tolerance, being part of a group, curiosity. You would hope that those values would be kind of part of the mass values of a society as well. I suppose what I would say is some people misunderstand what are Masonic values, especially if you've fallen into conspiracy theories. That can be dangerous because you can fall into, certain traps around believing incorrect things about Freemasonry and what our values are. In safety app, nice. I will check that out, Mr. Keeps. Maybe it's worth, I've talked before about, one value I think within Freemasonry should be caring for ourselves and others. I mean, our health and our well being, taking steps to ensure we are protecting our health. I talked about, for example, ways to ensure your medical info is available if necessary for first responders. So if you, heaven forbid, suffer a heart attack, suffer some type of medical issue, and first responders require your info, your medical info for treatment, they can find it through, they know where to find it. Looks like safety checks might be something else worth checking out as well. I'll look into that, Mr. Keeps. I'll see how to go about it. What is a safety check from an Android phone, out of curiosity? By the way, if you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me know what your thoughts are on Freemasonry. Well, Eric is not a fan. We know that the Freemason filth in the US and British governments, well, geez, none of that is true. But okay. I mean, no, it means the same thing. Again, Freemasonry, it's not about having different values. I do think within Freemasonry, it illuminates the values in the same way. Again, I've used this example a million times. If you're a football player, part of being a football player is that's really cool, Mr. Keeps. I'm going to look into that. I might share that on my social media. It might be of benefit to people to know that. That's for sure. If you become a football player, you are going to have certain values illuminated to you or for you. Values like teamwork, dedication, practice, sportsmanship. Now, those values are present both on a football team and hopefully within the mass culture of a country, or community. However, again, football will help direct your attention more directly to those values. So, yeah, for whatever it's worth. Well, I don't have a wife, but most Masons, young or old, that I've met are married. So that's a really good idea, Mr. Keeps. Again, I can see that being valuable, especially if you're traveling to places where there's certain risks, or if you have, let's say, dementia or Alzheimer's and there's concerns about you wandering off. Setting that up in your phone means it kind of, holy cow, the snow's coming back down. It kind of forces people again to check in on you if you need it. Um, as ship's captain said to the new midshipman, "Are you the loser?" I'm guessing that's something from your sea days when you were a sailor. Um, Sounds like something you would hear. I hope everybody's doing well. We're going to give it a bit more time, wait to see who joins, and then we are going to um, start talking about Freemasonry and the Holocaust because today is International Holocaust Day. All right, strategy. I can't tell if you're trolling or if you're just not understanding it. My point is, The values that exist within Freemasonry are also values that exist within the community at large. Freemasonry just helps to illuminate those values. Um, well, you're still here, Lobolas, so clearly you must find it interesting. And by the way, for all that, I got 3,300 and did I make it up to? Almost 3,370 subs. So that's not too bad. Well, then I don't think you're understanding strategy. Maybe I'm not explaining it well. But like I said, within Freemasonry, there exists, the values that you see that apply to Freemasonry or that Freemasonry illuminates. Those are the same values that are important outside of Freemasonry as well. It's just Freemasonry illuminates them, right? And that's true for anything you do, though. Anything you do, whether it's joining a football team, joining a hockey team, joining a knitting club, joining a, holy snow, joining a, like it could be anything, right? The point is, it will illuminate certain values, which you can then hopefully apply to your day-to-day life. Well, me, I do it all the time. Honestly, so JG, when you say discount code, do you mean join this channel or do you mean join Freemasonry? If you want to become a Patreon member and join this channel, then certainly I do have actually discounts for people who join. You get the first week free on Patreon on certain membership tiers, but that's not the same thing as joining Freemasonry. There's not really discount codes to become a Freemason. I do not. My parents live pretty far away from me, to be honest. In your neck of the woods or here in Windsor? Because I know we got a ton of snow and we're getting a ton more at the moment. Oh my gosh, it's really coming down. Um, So yeah, so absolutely, we got a ton of snow. Okay, we got probably close. I heard 10 to 15 centimeters here, so it really came down. Right now, there's probably a. I'm gonna just check if there's a weather warning in Windsor, anyways. We have a snow squall happening. Periods of brief but intense snowfall are expected. Visibility will be rapidly reduced due to the heavy snow combined with blowing snow. Local amounts of 2 to 5, let's see. 2 to 5 centimeters possible. Reduced visibility in heavy snow and blowing snow. If anybody's watching this and you're from Windsor, Essex, Southern Ontario, please be careful. Don't be on the roads right now unless you have to. The snow is absolutely coming down. I can barely see an inch outside my window at the moment. I would not want to be on the roads right now. A centimeter is like what? 2.5 centimeters equals 1 inch. So you can do that for your, you can figure that out in your head if you want to try to do the conversion. As of right now, I haven't. I'm sure there are some that have been. I haven't heard of any that have been canceled, at least in my neck of the woods. But it wouldn't shock me if in Southern Ontario, a lot of them got canceled. Southern Ontario up through Toronto, because I know they got an absolute blast of snow. And obviously, the safety of our membership has to come first. That includes making sure they're not out driving on, in inclement weather. Those are Shriners. It's not a silly popcorn hat. It's a fez. And that's the Shrine, which is, a wonderful part of the Freemasonry and the Masonic family. It is an affiliate or a pendant body, if you want to put it that way. I definitely don't think Trump is definitionally not king. He's president. I personally, I'm not a big fan of him, but that's just me. My opinion. I guess everybody will have their own opinion on him. Well, I mean, when it comes to when I say like Freemasonry will illuminate certain values, It part of it is through ritual and ceremony and paying attention to lessons. Part of it is just through showing up and doing the work and putting the time and effort in, right? That's true for everything in life. Usually the way you learn the values of something is just to take part in it and be active in it. And those values naturally illuminate. No one tells the football player, teamwork is valuable. Rather, the football player just learns the value of teamwork through being active and being part of the team. No one necessarily tells a Mason it's valuable to be tolerant of different religions and beliefs. However, you just learn those things because you're sitting next to brothers of different beliefs, and you're naturally going to develop and learn of those values as a consequence. Um, you don't sign a non-disclosure contract. You sign an application form. You take an obligation, which could be considered like a non-disclosure contract, in that one of the things you obligate is you're not going to reveal anyone else is a Freemason unless they give you their permission to do so. Um, I think The Crow is kind of horror, spirit of justice. So I like The Crow. I like the original quite a bit. I enjoyed one of the sequels. I can't remember which one. I enjoyed it. It's good. Well, the lodge does the activities because the lodge is a group of people strategy. It depends. We have our administrative meetings, which, for example, yes, I agree, user. Please, I agree. We have our administrative meetings, which is where we maintain the lodge itself. And those activities are any activities necessary to the maintenance of a group or community organization. Pay bills, read correspondence, file, paperwork, talk about upcoming Masonic lodges, or sorry, upcoming events, celebrations, plan events, talk about who might be sick or in distress. Then there's our ritual or ceremonial nights where we're bringing in primarily new candidates or advancing Masons through degrees. Then we'll have, we could have banquets, we could have special events, special celebrations. There's a ton of stuff that a lodge can do. It depends, but the two things that every lodge must do is the administrative work necessary for the maintenance of the order, as well as ritual and ceremony. Um, that's the shrine. So you got to join the shrine first. It can feel that way, Mr. Keeps. I mean, it can definitely feel a little bit try hard. It had that 90s vibe to it, right? Of like, it just had that 90s goth vibe of everybody was trying really hard to be cool. But I still enjoy it. I enjoy it more than I don't. Um, and I knew some people though who were absolutely. I know a lot of people, especially in law school. I knew this one girl who absolutely loved The Crow. She thought it was like the greatest movie ever. So, and I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. But it's not my favorite movie. Some people may or may not know my favorite movie is A Nightmare on Elm Street, um, 4 and A Nightmare on Elm Street 5. What is the best part of living in a silly? Canada's not a silly place. It's a wonderful place. I mean, I've argued a million times Freemasonry is the greatest country in the world. I think every Mason should be first and foremost a cheerleader for his own exclusive events, or sorry, for his own country and community. I think Windsor's the best city. I think Canada's the best country. Because I'm a Freemason, I'm a member of this community, I should be a cheerleader for it, a cheerleader of it. I mean, I know it sounds super cheesy. I love the multiculturalism of Canada. I think that's one of its greatest strengths. I love our history, both military history in terms of our efforts in World War II, liberation of Holland, as well as our peacekeeping in recent years and what that kind of has meant. I love our medical system. Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. It has its flaws, it has many flaws. But I think there is a moral quality to a system which ensures everybody gets treatment, or at least the goal of it is everybody gets treatment, as opposed to, some do, some don't, based on how much you can pay. I think that's a beautiful thing. I love our sense of community. I love our nature. We have some of the most beautiful parks, nature in the world by far. I adore it. And so, yeah, that's just a few of the things I love about being Canadian. Greatest country in the world. Um, well, that's definitely not true. You want to pay some of my bills, give me a super chat. Um, we do, Mr. Keeps. You're not supposed to tell people that. Um, you know, we absolutely, um, we absolutely do the ceremony to ensure the Eldritch monsters do not get their way to stop the Eldritch monsters. Because Freemasonry is not supposed to do that. The purpose of Freemasonry is not to pay your bills. You shouldn't be joining for um, economic benefit, or to have your bills paid, or to make money. Now, I will say, in fairness, I've known brethren who would have been homeless were it not for Freemasons stepping in to help them out. They, for whatever reason, they got into some hard times and they needed help. And Freemasonry was there for them, not just there for them, but there for them and their families. I used to say two, but it's actually been three, who again would have been homeless were it not for Freemasonry stepping in and helping them out, paying their rent or their mortgage. And in one case, it did not just help them, it helped them and it helped their whole family, because they had a wife and kids. So that wife, those kids would have also been homeless were it not for Freemasonry stepping in to help them out. I mean, I think freedom of speech is valued here in Canada. I'm here talking right now. I feel pretty free to say what I want. I would say in general, Canada is more, and not just about freedom of speech, but is more willing to recognize that there are and there exists limitations. For example, obviously, you can't lie about somebody, or you cannot defame somebody. And also, not everybody can speak at once, because then it's not freedom of speech, right? If we have 100 people in a room and we just say you can all talk as much as you want, as long as you want, with no order or no rules, you just have 100 people shouting at each other or shouting over each other. It's not just about the freedom to talk, it's about the freedom to be heard and have people listen to you. And that does require at least a certain level of order and responsibility and structure. Um, we, as Jordan Peterson might say, we slay metaphorical dragons, not literal dragons. They're metaphorical. I mean, some may. Strategy master. Again, every Freemason will have his own religious beliefs, his own, and how he gets those beliefs is could be his family, could be his own personal religious journey, could be his understanding of. I'm going to grab some water. I'll be back in just one moment. Like, there's a lot of different ways that Freemasons develop, have their own religious beliefs, but Freemasonry is not in and of itself a religion. In terms of percentages, I have no idea what the number of percentages of are of Freemasons who believe in angels and demons. I have no idea what a cupping is. That sounds vaguely dirty, but I can't imagine what it is. No, there is no medical requirement. I've never heard of any Masonic Lodge requiring medical info before you join. Honestly, I think it's a good idea. For the record, I don't think it's a bad idea at all if Masonic Lodges started. I've never seen any do it, requesting medical information or physical before you join. The reason being, and again, an applicant can just let the lodge know in advance, but we should know certain things about a brother's medical history and issues, or potential brother's medical history and issues, to try to make the lodge experience as good for him as possible. So, for example, let's say one of his medical issues is he cannot sit for a long period of time. And let's say your Masonic Lodge meeting is going to go a few hours. If you know in advance that this brother cannot sit for a long period of time without discomfort, you could approach him and just say, hey, if you ever need to stand up, stretch, that's perfectly fine. Don't feel like embarrassed. You can maybe sit somewhere a little bit more to the side. So if you are standing up, you're not blocking anybody's view of anything or distracting anybody. But you can just let them know, right? You can, again, if heaven forbid they have a heart attack in the Masonic Lodge or some type of issue, a stroke, who knows, and we have to, you call 911, you call first responders. If you have his basic medical history, you can let the first responders know, hey, this is the medications he was on, this is whatever it might be, this is the medical information he has, to maybe help the first responders deal with the situation. Or, within that, at the very least, the brother should let the secretary know, this is where I keep my medical info on my phone through that app, on my, on my phone through an app, or I have a bracelet, or it's in my wallet. Because again, I went through this exercise in my Masonic Lodge. I asked my brothers, let's imagine I have a stroke in lodge and I cannot communicate. And 911 is called. Are you going to know who is my emergency contact, where to find them? If the paramedics ask, will you know if I'm on any medication, what that medication is? It just stopped snowing. Will you know, what information the paramedics or doctors may need to help treat me? If you don't, maybe talk about how to get that information. I'm in a wheelchair because I was born this way. I was born missing my legs. Immigration deportation. That's an interesting name. I am not a girl. Maybe I'm Jewish. Maybe I'm not. It wouldn't make a difference being a Freemason because we do not discriminate. And I might be Beavis or Butthead. Both, I think, could be Freemasons. I mean, Freemasonry is not work in that sense, one way or the other. But no, Freemasonry is a different thing altogether. To my knowledge, I know very little about Scientology. To my understanding, though, it is a religion. So it occupies a religious space, whereas Scientology is a religion, it occupies a religious space, whereas Freemasonry is a civic or community organization. It occupies the civic or community space. So, no, Lobola, I've never met a Scientologist who's a Freemason, for whatever it's worth, so. You don't need legs to sit. I mean, I manage it just fine for whatever it's worth. Please take a moment, hit the like, hit the subscribe button if you are just joining us. We're going to give it a few minutes, and then I'm going to start talking again about Freemasonry and the Holocaust, because today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. That's a good question. Actually, Strategy Master, I did a whole Medium story about that. This is going to surprise some people. In my opinion, based on my research, going through the, I can't remember what it's called now, the personality testing. Let me just get the name of it right. but it's curiosity, right? I think based on my experience and my research, the most desirable trait to have for a person to be a Freemason is he has to be curious and have curiosity. Because if he has curiosity, in my experience, he's going to want to remain active throughout his life because he's always going to be interested in learning more, trying new things, right? If he's curious. If he's not curious, he may at a certain point get bored of Freemasonry and stop showing up regularly. Uh, F. John, please like and subscribe. Rosalie, you're on your own. I'm not adopting anyone. I do not know what that means. Did the Freemasons? I mean, Freemasonry, again, Freemasons, there were many soldiers who were Freemasons in World War II. There were also, many Masonic lodges. Well, so many Masons were targeted and put in concentration camps during World War II in Nazi Germany. So, Strategy Master, I would say the most desirable quality from a personality perspective is curiosity and open-mindedness. Hold on just one second. Um, so the N personality trait, which stands for intuitive, correlated to imagination, open-mindedness, and curiosity. So I would say those are actually the three qualities I would consider to be most desirable to bring somebody into a Masonic Lodge: imagination, open mindedness, and curiosity. Um, no, Freemasonry does not keep its mysteries till the 33rd degree. Freemasonry is a progressive science, but if you have up to your third degree, then that's the three most valuable degrees. That's all the secrets, quote unquote, that you need, right? You can then choose to join other rites and other bodies. You can join the Shrine, you can join York Rite, you can join Scottish Rite, and there are different secrets you learn at that point. However, if you want to know the secrets that encompass the whole of the craft, you need to get your first 3 degrees, part of Craft Lodge. So one more time. Um, Imagination, open mindedness, and curiosity. Those are the personality traits that I would say are most important to be a Freemason. Is the Illuminati the same as Freemasons? No, they're separate organizations. The Illuminati started um, in 1777 by a gentleman named Adam Weishaupt. He kind of started as like an anti-Masonic group, to be honest, because he was not a fan of Freemasonry for a variety of reasons. To my knowledge, it's really died out. Like I don't, it's not been much of an anything in the last 100 years or so. Yes, Cajole. I've known many Black Freemasons. Freemasonry does not discriminate based on race, creed, religion, ethnicity, background. That's not to say in the past there weren't discriminatory Masons because humans are imperfect, but certain, hence we have Prince Hall, things like that. However, as I noted, since since I've been a Freemason and even before, we had Masons with a variety of different backgrounds, beliefs, ethnicities, languages, races, etc., etc. George Soros is not the Mason leader. To my knowledge, George Soros is not a Freemason. I could be wrong, but that question has a tinge of politics to it. Freemasonry is not a political entity. So even if George Soros was a Mason, I don't believe he is, but I could be wrong. He would be one brother, not anything else, not any type of specific place of power or control. Because being rich also does not get you more authority within Freemasonry. So Lobola, that's a little bit mistaken. We have the Order of Women Freemasons. We also have Eastern Star. We have Rainbow, and we have Co-Masonry. All of those are part of this big umbrella called Freemasonry. It is strategy, although to have to go through it, I don't know a ton about the connections, but Rose-Croix and Rosicrucianism is connected to Freemasonry. In fact, I'm a member of 18th degree Scottish Rite, which is itself, it's called Rose-Croix for a reason. Oh, none of that, Kay Jewel. I'm sure, first of all, it's not even secrets, it's private information. Having said all that, I have no doubt that they could keep the secrets as well. What's up, No Filter Boss? Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. Let me try to get this stuff ready to talk about. I plan to talk about it, then I got not sidetracked, but obviously I want to be answering people's questions first and foremost. That's the most important thing for me. Okay. Let me just see if I can't. Dun, dun, dun. Go to my platforms. All right. So this is from the Detroit Masonic Temple Library, Archive, and Research Center. Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a day for honoring the memory of the 11 million people murdered by the Nazi German regime and their accomplices. The Nazis believed that Freemasonry was an integral part of the Jewish conspiracy, quote unquote, and singled out Freemasonry for destruction upon assuming power. On October 28, 1934, a decree was issued declaring Masonic Lodges to be hostile to the state, with their property subject to seizure. On August 17, 1935, Masonic organizations in Germany were dissolved and their assets confiscated. Freemasons were held in concentration camps identified by red upside-down triangles on their uniforms. Up to 200,000 were killed. That's from the Detroit Masonic Temple Library and Archive Research. I've never heard of any dragons or ghosts. So strategy, the secrets, if I told you what they were, then they wouldn't be secret anymore, right? I don't like the term secret. I prefer the term private information because secret has, people have connotations to it. Really, it's primarily modes of recognition as well as information about our rituals. Now, there's 3 reasons I would not be killed. There are 3 reasons to maintain the privacy. The primary one, though, primarily it's about maintaining the bonds of brotherhood. There are 2 ways you can create bonds of brotherhood or bonds between people: shared experiences or shared knowledge. Masonic ritual provides both. If I start to share Masonic ritual publicly in terms of things like modes of recognition, the consequence of that is it limits or reduces the bonds of brotherhood I have between those of us who've taken part in the rituals. It's no different than if I had a family recipe. If I share that family recipe with members of the public, now I've limited the bond between myself and past and future generations because the family recipe is no longer special or no longer private to my family. The other reasons are Masonic ritual and ceremony are different depending on which jurisdiction you're in. If I share information about my ritual, I could be giving you incorrect information because when you join, you may be joining in a different jurisdiction, which has different rituals. And third, it's like a spoiler alert. If you're going to join Freemasonry, you should be joining, as the rest of us do, taking to a certain extent a leap of faith. What I always say, and I'll say this again, is never have I seen any Masonic rituals where anything was done that was illegal or that was against one's civic, religious, or familial responsibilities. Well, stupid is to one, but not the other, right? You need to keep in mind that, some people may listen to songs and think of them as being stupid, but that doesn't make it the case. People have the right to enjoy what they like. on. Just 1 second. I'm sending this out. Oops. Okay. I don't know what the higher levels are, DVL, but don't think about it in terms of levels. Think about it in terms of degrees and offices. The highest degree in Freemasonry is the third degree. The highest office is the Worshipful Master. I mean, it's really them who decides. I mean, all the secrets have been revealed at this point a million times over. So you kind of, I mean, when you join Freemasonry, it's a leap of faith on both sides. It's a leap of faith for the person joining, and it's a leap of faith for the Masonic Lodge admitting him. No matter how careful you try to be, no matter how much work you put into it, at the end of the day, you can never know for sure if someone's going to be a good fit for Freemasonry. You just have to trust them. No, user, that is not true. That is not true at all. Okay, so where is it? Going back to what I was just talking about, International Holocaust Day. The United Grand Lodge of England also posted something. Today is Holocaust Memorial Day. The theme for Holocaust Memorial Day 2026, Bridging Generations, is a call to action, a reminder that the responsibility of remembrance doesn't end with the survivors. It lives on through their children, their grandchildren, and through all of us. This theme encourages us all to engage actively with the past, to listen, to learn, and to carry those lessons forward. By doing so, we build a bridge between memory and action, between history and hope for the future. That is, again, from the United Grand Lodge of England. So I'm going to read the first one more time because people come and go. Then I'm going to start talking about some interesting and specific stats. So, well, I'm focusing on the Holocaust because today is International Holocaust Day, but more importantly, you know, Freemasons were targeted by the Nazi regime. As were Jewish people, as were LGBTQ people, as were gypsies, as were political opponents. So it's not as though it's exclusive, you know, obviously the Holocaust, first and foremost, it did target Jewish people, but it targeted beyond that. But I would say the Holocaust in general, remembering the Holocaust and how tragic it was, and in some ways still is, in that it, you know, the effects continue to today, is a Masonic thing to do, because within Freemasonry, we are taught about the value of things like universal tolerance, respect, whether you are Jewish, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, or Christian. Remembering what happens when we lose those values of tolerance, I think, is pretty valuable. So once again, this is from the Detroit Masonic Temple Library, Archive, and Research Center. Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a day for honoring the memory of the 11 million people murdered by the Nazi German regime and their accomplices. The Nazis believed that Freemasonry was an integral part of the Jewish conspiracy, quote unquote, and singled out Freemasonry for destruction upon assuming power. On October 28, 1934, a decree was issued declaring Masonic lodges to be hostile to the state, with their property subject to seizure. On August 17, 1935, Masonic organizations in Germany were dissolved, their assets confiscated. Freemasons were held in concentration camps identified by a red upside-down triangles on their uniform. Up to 200,000 were killed. The Holocaust Encyclopedia talks about this as well. Right? When the Nazis came to power, policy towards, so let me get the, here it is, Holocaust Memorial Trust. So Holocaust Memorial Day Trust. The Nazis rejected Freemasonry, banning it in January 1934, partly because of its association with Jewish people, which, again, it was conspiracy theory, right? The secrecy associated with Masonic rituals always made the organization susceptible to conspiracy theories. The Nazis believed that the Freemasons were part of a conspiracy working against the interests of German nationalism. Criticism of Freemasons was a regular theme in Nazi propaganda, often framed in anti-Semitic discourse about the threat from world Jewry. Thousands of Freemasons were persecuted by the Nazi regime, and many were imprisoned in concentration camps classed as political prisoners. Masonic Lodge in a... There was one active Masonic Lodge located in a concentration camp. It was known as Liberté Chérie, Cherished Liberty. It was a secret Masonic Lodge founded in November 1934 within the Estwergen concentration camp in Nazi Germany. It was established by 7 Belgium resistance prisoners. We are not. I'm a Freemason. Maybe I'm Jewish, maybe I'm not. It does not make a difference to being a Freemason. It operated under harsh conditions to maintain morale, with 3 of its eventual 10 members surviving the war. I think initially there were 7. Sorry. Established by Belgium resistance prisoners, it operated under harsh conditions to maintain morale. 3 of its 10 members survived the war. So again, Liberté Chérie in the Estwergen concentration camp, known as one of the few, if not exclusive, active Masonic lodges founded inside the concentration camp. There was also L'Obstiné. It was a lodge founded within a German prisoner of war camp. I'm going to read the Wikipedia article, though I have researched it in the past, so I know it's accurate. Right, Liberté Chérie was a Masonic lodge founded in 1943 by imprisoned Freemasons in the Estwergen concentration camp. On November 15th, 1943, 7 Belgium Freemasons and resistance fighters founded the Masonic Lodge Liberté Chérie, French Cherished Liberty Lodge, inside Hut 6 of Estwergen concentration camp. Right, the original 7 members of Lodge Liberté Chérie were Paul Hansen, Luc Sommerhausen, Jean de Schrijver, Jean Sugg, Henry Story, Amédée Michelet, Franz Rochat, Guy Hanerkart. They later initiated, passed, and raised Brother Fernard Irau, another Belgium, right? Paul Hansen was elected master. The brethren met for lodge work in Hut 6 around a table, which was otherwise used for cartridge sorting. A Catholic priest stood watch so that the brethren could hold their meetings and protected their secrecy. When anybody, by the way, brings up the issues that the Catholic Church has with Freemasonry, once again, in this concentration camp, it was a Catholic priest standing watch, making sure that we could, in fact, have our Masonic meetings. Luc Sommerhausen described Irau's initiation as just simple ceremonies. These ceremonies, in the maintenance of the secrecy of which they asked the community of Catholic priests for assistance, took place at one of the tables after a very highly simplified ritual, whose individual components, however, explained to the initiate that from now on he could participate in the work of a lodge. More than 100 prisoners were in Hut 6 and locked up nearly around the clock, allowed to leave exclusively for a half-hour walk per day under supervision. During the day, half of the camp had to sort cartridges and radio parts. The prisoners of the other half of the camp were forced to work under dreadful conditions in the surrounding peat bogs. The nutrition was so miserable that the prisoners lost on average 4 kilograms of body weight each month, about 8 pounds. After the first ritual meeting, With the admission of the new brother, further meetings were thematically prepared. One was dedicated to the symbol of the great architect of the universe, another to the future of Belgium, and a further one to the position of women in Freemasonry. Only two survived detention. The lodge stopped meeting at the beginning of 1944. A memorial created by architect Jean Lassalle was raised by Belgium and German Freemasons on November 13th, 2004. It is now part of the memorial site of the Eswergen Cemetery. Wim Rutten, the Grand Master of the Belgian Federation of Le Droit Humain, said during an address, "We are gathered here today on the cemetery in Eswergen, not to mourn, but to express free thoughts in public. In memory of our brothers, human rights should never be forgotten." I'm doing this I'm doing this for support, so please do it. Give me a super chat. Maybe I'd be the big brother. Why'd I got to be the little brother? So I'm going to talk about the members of the lodge. Again, it was founded with 7 initially. There was at least an 8th that was brought in, though I understand there may have been a couple others. I've heard different numbers. I know it started with 7 members, and I heard it made it up to 10. Lodge Master Paul Hansen was moved and died in the rubble of his prison during an Allied bombardment on Essen on March 26, 1944. Brother Jean Sugg and Franz Rochart belonged to Philanthropic Friends Lodge number 5 of the Grand Orient of Belgium. Franz Rochart was a professor and pharmacist and director of an important pharmaceutical laboratory. Was born March 10th, 1908. He was a worker in the underground press and resistance publication Voice in the Belgium. He was arrested February 1942, arrived in April 1944, died April 1945. Arrived April 1944, died April 1945. Jean Sugg was born September 1897. He was of Swiss-German origin. He cooperated with Franz Rochart in the underground press. He died in a concentration camp February 8th, 1945. Amédée Michelet was a high school teacher, born December 1902, belonged to the Lodge Union Progress. He was last seen in detention February 1945. Jean de Schrijver was a colonel in the Belgian Army. He was born August 1893, brother of the Lodge of Liberté in Gand. He was, in September of 1943, he was arrested on charges of espionage and possession of arms, died February 1945. Henry Story was born November 1897, member of the Lodge La Septentrion in Gand, died December 1944. Luc Sommerhausen, a journalist, was born 1903, arrested May 1943 in Brussels. He belonged to Lodge ACSO III. He was also secretary of the Grand Orient of Belgium. Fernard Irau, an assessor at the audit office, was a reserve officer with the infantry, born January 1914. Arrested August 1942 as a member of the Secret Army. He escaped, was rearrested in 1943. Guy Hanacart, he was a lawyer. He was also a member of the Lodge Les Amis. Survivors Irau and Sommerhausen met again in 1944 in the Orienburg Sachsenhausen concentration camp, remained inseparable from then on. In the spring of 1945, they were involved in the death marches And although Irao was 1.84 meters tall, he weighed 32 kilograms. Um, in August of 1945, Luc Sommerhausen sent a detailed report to the Grand Master of the Grand Orient of Belgium, in which he delineated the history of the Lodge Liberté. Luc Sommerhausen died in 1982 at the age of 79. The last witness, Fernand Irao, died at the age of 83 in 1997. Anne Frank was not a Freemason, but she was a very valuable historical figure, that's for sure, and very brave. As were these 7 men who started the Grand Lodge. Um, as were these 7 Belgium Freemasons who, again, were incredibly brave. I cannot imagine being in a concentration camp. I cannot imagine losing 8 pounds every day to lack of nutrition. I cannot imagine going through all of that, going through all of those challenges, only to then being able to still maintain some type of Masonic meetings, even going so far as to actually bring in a new member, right? And bring in a new member. I think there's this old expression, right? If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl, ask someone to pick you up and carry you. Either way, just get where you need to get, get where you need to go. Um, um, and, I think that this demonstrates that, again, showing that you could be a Freemason, put in a concentration camp, and still choose to engage in not only engage in Masonic meetings, but engage in Masonic meetings, initiate a new brother, have special meetings where you talk about important subjects as it relates to Freemasonry, and engage in Masonic education. Right, that is nothing. That I have nothing but respect for that. I think we in Freemasonry should remember those brothers, and remember when we're struggling with Freemasonry, there are people who went through far worse than we did, and continued to, support Freemasonry and support their Masonic origins. So that is, again, the Cherished Liberty Masonic Lodge, founded November 1943 by 7 Belgian Freemasons in the Eerstwergen concentration camp, Hut 6 of the Eerstwergen concentration camp in particular. The total number of members, I've heard between 7 and 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I see, I think 9 is the actual number that I have here. We know about the Masonic Lodge and its efforts and its work primarily through Luc Sommerhausen, who in August of 1945 sent a detailed report to the Grand Master of the Grand Orient of Belgium, in which he delineated the history of the Lodge Liberté Chérie. No, because we were prisoners of the camps in those meetings. All right, CR. Looks like we got a Holocaust denier on the stream. I'm not going to put you in timeout, but I think in terms of being a particular, in terms of particularly noxious or terrible ideologies or beliefs, Holocaust denial is absolutely up there, near the top. Well, the Freemasons were prisoners. I was not a prisoner. I was not alive at the time. I've never been a prisoner anywhere. Let's knock on wood. I keep up that streak. I'd like to not be a prisoner anywhere. But the Freemasons were prisoners. Um, right? Let's see. Right? Masonic meetings, often in the form of instruction lodges, were reported in 14 different prisoner of war camps where inmates tried to maintain their traditions. Nothing but respect to them for that effort. Um, So after they conquered Europe, Germans forcibly dissolved Masonic organizations and confiscated their assets and documents wherever they established an occupation regime. After a lodge was closed, it ransacked for its membership lists, important library and archival items, furnishings, and other cultural artifacts. Items seized would be sent to the appropriate German agency, primarily the SD and later the RSHA. As part of their propaganda campaign against Freemasonry, Nazis and other right wing organizations mounted anti Masonic exhibitions throughout occupied Europe, Germany. Thank you, Courtney. Um, I think we're doing okay. Um, well, I mean, it wouldn't shock me, CR7 King, if something like that happened. I say that I worked in a jail for 5 years. Um, and it was never jewels or rubies or things like that. But I do know of times when people would try to smuggle things in by um, swallowing it, uh, in some type of casing and then pooping it out. We had this thing called dry celling, which is where if you suspected someone of doing that, you would put him in a cell with without any working plumbing, so the toilet couldn't flush because that way, and you'd watch them, and when they pooped, a correctional officer would have to check to see if anything came out. And I had even heard of people multiple times doing this where they would, poop something out, use part of it, and then re-digest it to keep it safe. Because if you just leave it outside of yourself, then it's at risk of being stolen or being found, either being found by correctional officers, stolen by other inmates. So you evacuate it, open the contents, use some of the item, whatever it might be, then close it up again, hopefully wash it, and perhaps reinsert it in a variety of different ways, which I'll leave to your imagination. Um, so, uh, I do know some people who have done that. Now, I'm not going to say how many times they did it because that I don't know, but I do know they did it more than once with the same item. Um, so, yeah, it doesn't shock me by any means. Um, Again, the idea of it being rubies, that seems vaguely anti-Semitic, but it wouldn't shock me if it was like if you had some type of family heirloom that you did not want to fall into the hands of the Nazis. Um, there's very few places that you have to protect it and store it. So, um, yes. So RH. I'm not a big fan of the anti-Semitism. So I was talking about again Freemasonry and the Holocaust. Um, as they conquered Europe, the Germans forcibly dissolved Masonic organizations and confiscated their assets and documents wherever they established an occupation regime. After a lodge was closed, it was ransacked for membership lists, important library and archival items, furnishings, and other cultural artifacts. Items seized would be sent to the appropriate German agency, primarily the SD and RSHA. As part of their propaganda campaign against Freemasonry, Nazis and other local right wing organizations mounted anti Masonic exhibitions throughout occupied Europe. German-occupied Paris hosted an anti-Masonic exhibition in October 1940, as did German-occupied Brussels in 1941. Displaying Masonic ritual and cultural artifacts stolen from lodges, such exhibitions aimed to ridicule and direct hatred towards Freemasons and to heighten fears of Jewish Masonic conspiracy. German wartime propaganda, particularly in the army, charged that the Jews and Masons had provoked World War II and were responsible for the policies of U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was identified as a Freemason. He was a Freemason, not just identified as. He was a Freemason, as was Winston Churchill. I'd like to think that at least some of Franklin Roosevelt's opposition to Germany, to Nazism, to the Nazis came from at least some Masonic values related to, for example, tolerance, respect for all, looking beyond the narrow limits of particular institutions to recognize we are all brothers. Um, no, I mean, Freemasonry is not political. We have right wing Masons, we have left wing Masons, we have central, I would say, or center Masons. I would say Freemasonry is opposed to Nazism, though, as it should be. I wouldn't want to join any organization that was supportive of it. Um, some of Germany's Axis partners decreed police and discriminatory measures against Masons. In August 1940, the Vichy France regime issued a decree declaring Masons to be enemies of the state and authorizing police surveillance of them. The French wartime authorities even created a card file that identified all members of the Grand Orient of France, a leading French Masonic organization. The card file survived the war and was later microfilmed for the holdings of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum archives. I am so excited. Well, not excited is the right term. One of my goals this year is 100% to make my way to the Holocaust Museum. I've been to Chicago hundreds of times, probably, at least dozens, got to be close to hundreds, including Skokie, Illinois, which is where the Holocaust Memorial is located. I've sadly never got to visit it though. And I want to visit it because I want to read that card file, right? Again, the French wartime authorities created a card file that identified all members of the Grand Orient of France, a leading French Masonic organization. Um, the card file survived the war and was later microfilmed for the holdings of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum archives. Um, yeah, we're going to have to put Nick in a bit of a timeout. Even though, would it make a difference if I was came out gay or straight? Shouldn't matter to Freemasonry. In 1942, um, Alfred Rosenberg was authorized. Well, no Freemasons are perfect. Churchill was not perfect. He made a lot of mistakes, but I think he also did a lot of good. Alfred Rosenberg was authorized by a Hitler decree to wage an intellectual war against the Jews and Freemasons. To that end, Hitler permitted Rosenberg's deployment of staff of Reich leadership, Rosenberg, to seize and evaluate Masonic archives and libraries to best equip them to carry on their methodical intellectual fight necessary to win the war. The members of the ERR were guaranteed the support of the High Command of German Armed Forces in fulfilling their mission. At the end of World War II, well, definitely not that, he was a monster. Vast collections of Masonic archives and library collections that had been seized by German authorities were captured in turn by Allied and Soviet forces. For example, a significant Masonic archive was found in Silesia in eastern Germany by Soviet troops in the last days of World War II. The Soviet authorities shipped the records to Moscow, where they were held in secret archives. Other Masonic-related materials were recovered in Poland. Some of this material has been microfilmed and stored in the archives of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum Since the end of the Cold War, many Masonic-related collections have been returned to the countries of origin, while others continue to be held in foreign repositories. Because many of the Freemasons who were arrested were also Jewish and or members of the political opposition, it is not known how many individuals were placed in Nazi concentration camps and were targeted exclusively because they were Freemasons. Some former lodge members, as individuals, participated in or associated with German resistance circles. Some were arrested and murdered during World War II. I would say if you were a Freemason in Nazi Germany, your Masonic understandings and lessons should have illuminated how terrible Nazism is, or was, and still is. And you should have been engaged in resistance circles. At least I hope you would have been. And credit to any Masons who were, nothing but respect to them. We know that 200,000, at least according to research, 200,000 Masons were killed in concentration camps during World War II. The number of them that were put into concentration camps and killed exclusively because they were Freemasons versus the number that were killed because they were Freemasons but also members of political opposition or were Gypsy or were Jewish, we don't know. But we do know that Freemasonry was targeted and, again, 200,000 Masons were killed period during World War II. Many more were put in concentration camps. Some were able to continue their Masonic, as much as they could, their Masonic traditions in concentration camps, most specifically Lodge Cherished Liberty out of the Estwergen concentration camp started and founded by 7 Belgian Freemasons. Well, it definitely wasn't 271. It was 6 million at a minimum, probably higher. My suspicion is the numbers are slightly lower than what it actually was. So it was 6 million. Afternoon, MD Myth. Thank you for being here. No, it wasn't strategy. That's a weird thing to say. I don't know what you're talking about, but that sounds vaguely like trolling. CR King, again, I'm not going to put you in. Well, my assumption is it's rounded down. My assumption it's more than 6 million. My assumption, again, you're never, when it comes to anything like this, numbers are always going to be challenging. However, my suspicion is 6 million is probably a little bit low. When I mean a little bit low. I think 6 million is a pretty accurate number, right? It's close enough to be accurate. That whether it's, but it wouldn't shock me if there were more. Because again, one of the things that we don't know is, for example, like even when I was reading the story about the Cherished Liberty concentration camp, there was one brother from that camp. They mention they don't actually have any confirmation of his death. He was last seen alive in a concentration camp and then never seen again. Is he counted as one of the 6 million that was killed in a concentration camp? I don't know. Because there's no death certificate, anything like that, right? Especially near the end. And my understanding also is the Nazis and the Germans were trying to destroy all the records from the concentration camps before the end of the war because they didn't want a record of their atrocities. One of his, I think great credits, to his credit, is Dwight D. Eisenhower. To my knowledge, it was Eisenhower. It may have also been FDR, but I believe Eisenhower ordered that, everything that the American soldiers saw when they were freeing or entering into concentration camps be documented. The condition of the people, the records, take photos, document what you saw, so the world would never forget what had happened. And I think nothing but credit and respect to, again, I believe it was Eisenhower, or may have been FDR, for making that order, because a lot of the records were destroyed, which means more people may have died than we were aware of. I don't know. Masons individually may have. There was no Masonic plot, to my knowledge. That's not to say Freemasons may not have. I mean, I would hope that Freemasons would have resisted Nazi rule and Nazi ideology, and we know many did. Again, Cherish Liberty Camp. Um, the American Nomad, yes, this forehead is real. Authentic reflection, I joined Freemasonry because my father and grandfathers were both Freemasons, and I saw value in it. I remember growing up, going to the Christmas parties and special events. It's something about it always spoke to me, and I went from there. You seem authentic reflection the type of person who is kind of cruel for no reason. You don't know me, so why are you saying such things? Well, I mean, the world doesn't need to be civilized. The world is civilized in and of itself. I think I'm not trying to civilize the world as a Freemason. What I am trying to do is build a better community through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. What I've always said in the past, and still believe this to be the case, is Freemasonry is the belief that the world can be made better through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. And if there's a lesson from today's stream, maybe it's that this building can happen even in the darkest of circumstances, right? When you consider, for example, dealing with, being put in a concentration camp and what that means, and how challenging that would be, and how hard it would be to see the way to build a better world, to still take the time and effort to develop a Masonic lodge, to initiate a brother, to hold Masonic meetings and hold Masonic education. I think there's nothing but respect for that. Um, Even if other people are working to build a worse world, hopefully we can try to build a better world. And also, nothing but respect to the Catholic prisoner of war or the Catholic prisoner in the concentration camp who actually was good enough and kind enough to act as almost a guard or tiler for the lodge when it held its meetings. Um, what I would say though is I think within Freemasonry, one of the ideas and attitudes of tolerance that we need to have is the idea of tolerance as it relates to different cultures. I would never want to hear Freemasons talk about the need to civilize other cultures. Cultures develop their civilizations based on whatever pressures they are facing. I would not say one is necessarily more or less civilized than any other. Puma, I'm very sorry if you got bullied in high school. I don't support bullying, nor does Freemasonry. I do hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button. Um, so I hope that what I have said made sense thus far. Um, there was no Battle of Freemasons to my knowledge. I've never heard of that. I feel like I should have heard of that. Let me see. Never heard of that before, so I do not know what that is. Oh, okay. Oh, it was the battle for ancients versus moderns? Maybe. It was the formation of the Massachusetts Grand Lodge. I do not know what battle to which you're referring. I already did it. It was a 24-hour content marathon, CR King. So I already did it. It was fun. I did content on a variety of different channels. This channel, my other YouTube channels, an X space, Blue Sky live tweeting, some written content. It was a lot of fun. I do not know what this battle is, Boran. I'll tell you my opinion on people liking and subscribing. You should do it. Um, so, according to the Yad Vashem, um, hold on just one second. Let me get the name of this right. the Yad Vashem World Holocaust Remembrance Center. So Freemasons, a secret fraternity, which again is not a secret fraternity, it's a fraternity associated with Jews incorrectly, but yes, through many conspiracy theories, thus prosecuted during the Holocaust. The Masonic movement was founded in England in 1717. Jews were admitted to its English lodges by 1732, and later on in the Netherlands, Germany, France, and other European countries. Um, right in with the increase of anti-Semitism in many places, Jewish people stopped being allowed to join Freemasonry in the 1870s. It's kind of like the issue with Prince Hall. It's very similar, right? Where again, the ideal of Freemasonry is that it allows for everyone, regardless of race or ethnicity. However, as with most things in life, there is a shadow between the ideal and the implementation. So, as a consequence, one of the reasons that B'nai B'rith was formed was because in many places, Jewish people stopped being allowed to join Freemasonry, if not directly, at least indirectly. Um, right? However, the association between Jewish people and Freemasons was already being touted by right-wing organizations in Germany as early as the 1840s. Soon, the notion of their alliance spread to France and then throughout the world. Catholic groups strongly believed that the Masonic Lodges were a cover for a Jewish plot to eradicate Christianity. We're not, it never was. An anti-Masonic World Congress met in Trent, Italy in September 1894. After World War I, anti-Jewish literature, such as the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, repeated the false claims of a Jewish Masonic Brotherhood. Freemasonry was considered an enemy of Nazi ideology, so a special section of the security service was designated to deal with it. Some Masons were sent to concentration camps. Again, we don't know the exact number, but up to 200,000. I mean, if Nazism had survived, I think the world would be a much worse place. I sometimes think about it for myself a little bit, like having no legs, right? We do know that amongst all the different groups that Nazi Germans, that Nazism targeted, we know about Jewish people, obviously. Um, we know about Jewish people. That's kind of where most people go first, and for obvious and good reasons. I think they were the primary target. But then there's also Freemasons, political opponents, gypsies, LGBTQ, lesbian and gay people. They were all targeted. But on top of that, they also targeted those who were drains on the state. People like myself with no legs, right? In The Man in the High Castle, one of the scenes I'll always remember is this guy, the Man in the High Castle. It's a story. It's set in an alternate reality where America and the Allies lost the war, and Germany ends up taking over America, or at least most of America. Japan got the, part of the West Coast. But this guy's driving through America, and he gets stopped by a police officer, and he notices a whole bunch of ash falling from the sky. He asks the police officer what the ash is, and um, oh, it'd be terrible, right? If the Axis won, it would be very bad. I can't imagine how it would be better. But anyways, he asks the police officer, like, why is all this ash falling? And the police officer says, oh, on this day, we burn all the people who are drains on the state, people with disabilities, mental and physical disabilities, or impairments, right? I mean, if the Germans had won World War II, I think one of the ways that the world would have been significantly worse is I would not have been, got to have been a part of the world. It's very likely that I would have been, when I was born, I would have been sent to be killed, euthanized, because it would have been considered a drain on society as someone with no legs. I always wondered if Papa, my grandfather, fought in World War II, uh, on for Canada, and I always wondered if he ever thought about that because his sacrifice fighting in World War II, and the sacrifice of all the soldiers, especially those who did not come back home, it made it so that there could be a world in which people such as myself could actually live and exist and thrive. I even saw this movie once where there was a parliamentarian I don't know if it was based on a true story, but there was this parliamentarian who spent all of his time, not Churchill, but trying to promote, the necessity of fighting Germany. And it shows him at home, and it shows him caring for a disabled son that he had. That, again, for obvious reasons, he recognizes if Nazi ideology makes it out of Germany and takes over the world, those with disabilities, including his son, would be, you know, the best term you could use for it is euthanized or murdered. I was wondering if Papa ever thought about that and realized when he was over there fighting, against Nazi Germany, he was fighting for his future grandson. And then also, obviously, I think the world would be made worse if the Nazis had won, because presumably Freemasonry would no longer exist in an organized fashion. It would have to exist in underground forms because it would have been outlawed anywhere that the Nazis took over. One of the things they did was outlaw and ransack Masonic lodges. And then obviously what it would mean for all the Jewish people in the world, all the gypsies, all the LGBTQ people in the world, all their political opponents. It strikes me as the world would be a pretty terrible place if the Axis had won. So I'm grateful for, people such as my grandfather. I'm grateful for all the soldiers. I'm grateful for all the people in resistance movements who kept the fight going and made sure that the world could be won. I'm very happy to be part of a world in which the Canadian and the Allied troops were victorious, and grateful for all of the Masons who themselves engaged in leadership in that fight, whether it be at the highest levels, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, both of whom were Freemasons themselves, and all of the soldiers who fought, and all of those Freemasons who kept the light of Freemasonry alive however they could, under even some of the most difficult circumstances, some of the most heartbreaking circumstances, such as within a concentration camp. Subway is great. What's wrong with Subway? Amberlynn, I was born missing my legs. I have no legs. Um, so I never had them to lose them. Amberlynn, please hit like and subscribe. Um, I mean, certainly Freemasonry is related to Leonardo da Vinci. If I could actually, let me just get his, so Masonry, the use and the building of stone, the use of stone in the shaping of stone for use in buildings, and for, human betterment, whether it be walls, buildings, or other items. Certainly Freemasonry or Masonry was well known in Da Vinci's times. Masonry had been in existence for thousands of years. The importance of geometry within Masonry was certainly well known. Leonardo da Vinci famously, was very interested in things like engineering, science, architecture, sculpting. So certainly all of those things are important to Freemasonry as well. As such, I think you could argue that in some ways, I'm not a big fan of this term, but you could argue Leonardo da Vinci was a spiritual Freemason, though not an actual Freemason. Because again, Freemasonry, at its earliest, you can date it to 1634 in Scotland. The Grand Lodge was formed 1717 in England. Um, Alex Copperstone, I should, but please hit like and subscribe. Stoner, please hit like and subscribe. Um, CR7 is not propaganda, it's true. The world would be a much worse place if not for the sacrifice of all the soldiers fighting against, pick your term, the tyranny, the monstrosity, the immorality of Nazi Germany and Nazism in general. Um, well, CR7 King, in again 1634 in Scotland, um, there was three brothers actually. When I say brothers, three like blood brothers who joined a operative Masonic lodge or an operative guild. Really, it was like a trade union. They joined not because they wanted to learn how to build out of stone, but they joined for the social aspect of it. And in some ways, you could even argue the social safety net aspect of it. But they wanted to be part of something. And at that time, the stone mason trade guilds were they were still very big and very large, and they're, a really cool thing to be a part of, but they were declining in membership. They were declining in numbers because there were less stone structures being built. So it was like a mutually beneficial relationship. People wanted to join for the social aspect of it without necessarily learning any of the stone masonry work. Stonemasons needed members to pay dues to be part of the club, even if they were not necessarily going to become tradesmen. So basically, you got the money from them, you got the membership from them, but you also didn't risk, losing work to more tradesmen or flooding the market with tradesmen. So it worked out well for both. Over time, more and more men started joining these lodges out of a desire for social aspect and socializing without an interest in the operative side of things. And those numbers just kept growing and growing and growing. A good way to think about it, CR7 King, this is the metaphor I've used. Let's imagine you're hanging out at a club or at a bar or at a pub, and you look over and you see a group of guys enjoying each other's company and hanging out together. They seem to just be a good group of friends. You go and speak to them, you find out they're all a bunch of stonemasons who every, Friday after work, they get together at this one place for socializing and just enjoying each other's company. And you ask, hey, can I hang out with you guys on Friday nights? Can I join you? I'll put in some money, which can go towards, drinks and refreshments. But can I hang out with you? They say, sure. During the day, they go to their job, which is stonemasonry. You go to your job, whatever it might be. But then every Friday night or Thursday night or whatever night, you get together with them in a social setting for fun and enjoyment. Maybe you chip in some money to buy, food and refreshment. And then over time, more and more people see this Friday night gathering, see the social aspect of it, and start to join. So eventually, you have more people there for the social aspect of it than you have who share the profession. And it just grows from there. Human beings, we want to be social. We want to be part of clubs and groups. And then the rituals, it's just developed naturally, right? Like maybe eventually you get so many people hanging out on Friday nights together that you decide instead of coming to this club, we're going to all chip in some money. We'll create some, dues, and we're going to buy our own place. And we'll bring, we'll order in food. And this way we can have our own space. We're not relying on this club or pub or bar. We'll have our own space and we'll all pay dues into it. And then maybe you decide, you know what? This initially started with, stonemasons gathering here. Now it's a social club, but we're going to honor our stonemason roots by, if anybody else wants to be part of this and join, we're going to create some ceremonies and rituals that celebrate stonemasons as a way to remember where it started. You just and then you develop more rituals. You need to develop some type of infrastructure because now you own your own building, which means you have to have committees to maintain the building. You have to determine the dues. It kind of just grows from that, right? It just takes time. So, yeah, I hope that made sense. Um, well, all time traveler, Freemasonry started with bricklayers, right? That's the point. Well, not bricklayers, but Freemasons started from stonemasonry in the Middle Ages, and then it grew into Freemasonry or evolved into Freemasonry from that. You can get a ring whenever you want. You don't even need to be a Freemason to get a ring. You can unlock a ring by going to a pawn shop and asking to buy one, which is why you need to be so careful that you don't rely on the idea of, oh, this guy has a ring, he must be a Freemason. Having said that, in many jurisdictions, they encourage you to not wear a Masonic ring until you've got your third degree. It's called a light. AI Time Traveler, please hit like and subscribe. No, he didn't. CR7 King, he did not. Good for him. I'd rather learn them on my own, even though all the secrets are out there and have been disclosed a million times over. I'm grateful that he did not because it made the experience more meaningful for me to learn as I go. I don't think spoilers would have been helpful for me or would have been good for me. So we are one sub away from 3,370 subs. Help a brother out. Well, I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by specific. Like, you mean there are specific people that you want to socialize with? Um, they're on the web, never mind the dark web. But here's what I'll say. If you're not a Freemason, you're not going to know which secrets are legit and which secrets are not legitimate. You need to keep that in mind. That's why the one way to know is to join, and that's why joining is a leap of faith. I mean, so if when you say specific, you are meaning that there are certain, I don't want to like say anything negative about you, but like one of the things that Freemasonry teaches you is tolerance for those who have different beliefs, backgrounds, ages, ethnicities, pick your term. So one of the beautiful things about that is like legitimately, maybe Freemasonry would be good for you in that it would force you out of your comfort zone a little bit. It would force you to interact with and socialize with people you might not usually, do so with. And thank you, Courtney. That's incredibly kind of you. And I think that's a really good thing. And maybe that would be good for you. In terms of laziness, I mean, strategy, I would be hesitant to join Freemasonry if I'm think I might be too lazy to make it to meetings. Not that everybody can make it to every meeting, but you're getting, if you join Freemasonry and you never show up to lodge, you're getting very little out of it. So I would maybe again though, maybe Freemasonry can encourage you to start, being a little bit less lazy and being more active. What I would say is, as I talked about before, the three most important traits, in my opinion, are curiosity, open-mindedness, and inquisitiveness. So if you have those traits, it's worth exploring. Lee, please hit like and subscribe. Lucy Burgess, please hit like and subscribe. So stonemason is a profession. It refers to building things from stone. Freemason or speculative mason is a social or civic club or organization. Having said that, a lot of people will use the term Freemason and Mason interchangeably, even me. I mean, I don't think they would be boring. I mean, I've enjoyed them. I don't know. Again, it depends on what the talk is. Some talks can definitely be boring. Some talks are exciting and interesting. But again, even then, strategy, that's a lesson. Um, like, one of the things I found is I always try to have a different mindset when things are going not well. So, um, if, for example, I'm in a meeting and it's boring and it happens, or it's a rough meeting, I consider it a blessing because it is a test of my patience. Um, and a test of my patience is valuable. Sometimes CR7 King tests my patience. Maybe the reason I'm, decent at dealing with him is because I've had to be through Masonic meetings that have driven me crazy. And I made it through the other side, and that was a valuable skill I developed. Um, they do, Lucy Burgess. They don't have a women's version of Freemasons. They have just women Freemasons. They have the Order of Women Freemasons. They also have Eastern Star, Rainbow, and even Co-Masonry. I don't like the term version of. I would just say we have women Freemasons. Very active, for example, in England. There have been women Freemasons in England longer than women had the right to vote there. So there you go. Well, then the usefulness strategy comes from learning how to be patient, right? So, what I would say is there's always a use, even in things that are not good or not enjoyable to you at the time. If if you are going to a meeting and let's say they're engaged in a education piece that does not seem useful to you, maybe the value of that is um, a test in patience. Uh, maybe there's a grip, maybe there's not. I'm not going to say. What I'd say is if you want to learn about what Freemasonry is, join Freemasonry. Well, what I'd say is, first of all, even if it got darker, which I don't accept the premise, it doesn't matter because the foundation and what matters in Freemasonry is the first 3 degrees. If you got rid of the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry, Freemasonry would cease to exist. So, to the extent that any ritual can speak for Freemasonry or represent Freemasonry, it's the first 3 degrees up to the Master Mason degree. After that, there are pendant bodies, there are affiliated groups, there are Masonic organizations, but they don't speak for Freemasonry in the way the first 3 degrees do. Because you could, for example, no longer have a 33rd degree within Freemasonry, and I would be saddened by that because I love the 33rd degree Masons and, I love those guys are my brothers. However, for 99.99% of Freemasonry, nothing would change, including for them. And certainly, being a 33rd degree Mason doesn't give you any extra authority or powers or influence within a lodge. So you need to keep that in mind. Um, I've been way past the 6th degree. I'm 18th degree. The other thing to keep in mind is I have to rely upon my own judgments. I've been a Mason for 20 years approximately, seen thousands of Masonic meetings all around the world, never seen anything that would indicate it gets quote unquote darker. At a certain point, I just have to trust my observations. Um, no user, rich and poor members do not separate themselves in any meeting of which I've ever been a part of or seen. If that was the case, I don't think I'd join. I don't think I'd want to be a Freemason because Freemasonry should not be separating men on those things. Um, Hello, goodbye, Dad. I love you. Thank you for being here. A redo for what? A redo for what am I redoing? Help me out with that. What needs to be redoed? Because I think I'm pretty perfect just the way I am. There is not. Now, I can't speak for clandestine lodges. We need to keep that in mind. But Freemasonry, the legitimate organizations, do not separate based on upper class, lower class. Some lodges may have dues that are very high, which means it's very hard for, let's say, members who are not making a certain income level to join. Not so much in North America, though, um, but definitely in some places you can have dues and costs set so high that it's, by default only exclusive or certain types of. So you need a certain income to join. I'm not a fan of that myself. Oh, tag, what is the redo which I need? Yes, he is. Um, and I love him, and I'm proud that he is my father. We are going to give this stream another, let's say, 5 minutes, maybe 2.5 hours. Then I'm taking a nap because I did not get any sleep last night for a variety of reasons. It's a both funny and terrifying story, which I'll talk about. It's funny now, not so much at the time, which I'll talk about at some point, so stay tuned. It's not mind effery, Kevin. It's the symbol for Freemasonry, and I love Freemasonry. So there. I mean, honestly, I usually sleep pretty well, but this is just it's a story. It's a story. Well, I'm glad you're making a polite remark. Do you mean you're confused about Freemasonry, or do you mean you're confused about my stream and what I talk about? If I'm being confusing, then that's something I need to work on to be better. If you're confused as to why your brother did not mention he's a Freemason, some people, for a variety of reasons, just don't talk about their Freemasonry. It's not really common anymore, but it was certainly more common to be quiet about it back in the day, which I think is unfortunate. I think we within Freemasonry do a disservice when we don't talk about it. But everybody has the right to discuss, you know, Freemasonry as they so choose. Nice, Courtney. I see also it looks like you have the shirt as well. Very cool. When I don't know what the free walk is, it does sound kind of like let your stuff hang free, which nobody should be doing. Well, nobody wants to see that. But um, when I see what I first think of is long walk when I hear free walk, is one of my favorite movies of last year, one of my favorite movies of all time. Um, I mean, I love the people of Iran. I love the people of every country. I think you have to separate the people of a country from the government. There is no Freemasonry, at least legally, in Iran, but maybe one day it'll come back there. Um, I do not know what this. Oh, this. I don't know what to see. What? Oh, the like crip walking. Well, Ferps, I love anybody who hits the like and subscribe button, for the record. So please hit the like and subscribe button. Um, would be very much appreciated. And I do believe everybody, just to make this reminder, everybody has received from the holiday season their special correspondence. For anybody who becomes a Patreon member, you get, usually in the holiday season, you get special correspondence, as well as when you join, you get special correspondence, as well as special items. For example, you might get this coin, depending on, again, the level. You also get member exclusive virtual content. Um, User, I do not know what that is. Um, Very often, the correspondence is actually special commemorative postcards and pictures, as well as, again, you can get coins, you can get up to a scale model Masonic building. The biggest thing is just make sure if you sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/square and compass, you include your mailing address so I know where to send the items. So I'm mystical. That's a fascinating question. I am, I go back and forth on it because I, the book, so the book wasn't dealing with the same constraints the movie was in terms of costs, right? So the book, you can have 100 people walking. It doesn't cost you anything extra, whereas in the movie they had 50, probably because 100 walkers would just be too expensive to pay all those people, and to shoot all those people. I think the book did a better job expressing just how, like, incredibly physically, the physical toll that the walking took. It described, like, Garrity becoming so skinny that he could feel his ribs, and people looking like, well, concentration camp survivors. I don't think the movie ever did as good a job of showing the absolute damage it took on people. Um, but again, that's a matter of there's only so much you can do with makeup and special effects. The book, you can describe it in so much more detail. But I do think the book did a better job at expressing, this is a Masonic content, the idea of brotherhood, why we create brothers, why even in the most challenging of circumstances, like in a concentration camp, like on a long walk, we choose to form brotherhood and form bonds. Even though, in theory, that could be self-defeating. If you're forming a bond, in the long walk, you're making friends with somebody, creating a brotherhood of somebody who you will, at best, you will have to see die or will have to see you die. And every time you choose to support them, every time you choose to help them keep going, you are then forcing yourself to keep going as well. Yet we still, in the movie, they still form brotherhood. They still form brothers. They become brothers. And what you see is the two who form the strongest bonds, who actually call themselves brothers, last the longest. So even though forming friendships and forming brotherhood will cause us a level of pain, because we have to see them die, even if we're not doing a long walk, sooner or later we're going to lose them. Nobody lives forever. It still allows us to make it further in life and further along the road. So, I mean, for me, my brothers are my Masonic brothers. Spartacus, Freemasonry does not need to be outlawed. I love Freemasonry. So Freemasonry is not a religion. It has borrowed from religious themes, but it also borrowed from architecture, from stonemasonry primarily, from Egyptian mysticism, from Chinese mythology, from Enlightenment philosophy. It wasn't proud. It took from a variety of different places, but it's not a religion. It's a civic group. Yes, James, you can get that for just $50 a month on Patreon. Minotaur, I'm doing well. Honestly, C7, there were times when I thought I was going to throw hands with brothers in a lodge because, not in a lodge, but outside of lodge, getting into fights and scraps. And, the testosterone, you're young, the testosterone's up there. And, you think, are you going to throw hands? Even with no legs, am I going to throw hands with somebody? What Freemasonry teaches you, though, is it's okay to disagree with a brother. It's okay to even in a moment, think you're going to get into a fight with a brother, have other brothers break it up. What it's not okay is to hold on to grudges and to hold on to these things. What you need to do is push past them. And, it's no different than professional wrestling. I love professional wrestling. How many stories do we hear of actual professional wrestlers getting into actual fights backstage and in the locker room? Batista and Booker T, or Mick Foley and Ric Flair, or whatever, dozens of them, only to, the next day shake hands and Chris Jericho and Goldberg, the next day to shake hands and put it in the past and be professional. And if not like each other, at least respect each other. Men sometimes fight, brothers fight. Freemasons are not enemies of humanity. In fact, I think Freemasonry, we are trying to build a better world for humanity through the application, or at least better communities through humanity for the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Hot Rod, Roddy Piper. Well, I've never actually seen any actual fights, but I'm saying I've seen tempers grow, voices get raised. Sometimes brothers step in between two other brothers and back some people off, but it's not scary. It's just part of being brothers. Brothers fight. Okay, so as long as you understand that, Lily, then you're not that confused. It just, when it was developing its rituals and ceremonies, it borrowed from religious symbolism because it's probably, amongst other things, it's one of the few symbolic languages that everyone would be familiar with at the time, right? Even if you couldn't read, you probably were familiar with at least some biblical stories. I mean, I'm sure about it as sure as I'm about everything else. I mean, I'm never going to say I'm 100% sure about anything because you can't be, right? What I can say is within my 20 years of experience, thousands of meetings around the world, what I've seen and experienced gives me at least a level of assurance. Well, never in the Masonic meeting, but outside of it. Oh gosh, I remember at one point, for others, I've seen, again, you don't discuss politics in a Masonic lodge, but you discuss, politics can get discussed outside of it. I once saw two brothers get into a let's say, a very heated debate about that, and we separated them before anything could happen, and then they apologized to each other the next day. Again, that should never happen within a Masonic lodge, but outside of it, afterwards, there's no prohibition against talking about politics, and those things pop up. For me, it was this brother. He was talking to me about something. He used a word I didn't like, not like a racist or sexist or anything like that. Just he said something that stuck in my craw, and I called him out on that. And I think the fact that I called him out on that, he didn't appreciate, because he was an older guy. Maybe felt he didn't like the idea of being called out on. So he did not like hearing that. So he responded to me in a way that, he raised his voice, and that pissed me off. So I raised my voice. It was just a lot of testosterone. It was the idea of, I don't want to use the word, but basically he was judging, I felt he was judging other Masons, including myself, for not being sufficiently dedicated, which I didn't appreciate. Looking back, I think I took it probably more incorrectly or more personally than I should have. But at the time, it pissed me off. So I responded to him probably more strongly than I should have, but that pissed him off. So he responded to me. And then, the testosterone starts going. I'm, 42 now, so I don't necessarily have that same, when you're younger, but, and it just grows and grows and grows and grows. But again, there's a couple brothers stepped in and nothing happened. And then the next day we kind of shook hands, and that was the end of it. Well, because I just, not roid rage, but, young men can sometimes, youngish men can sometimes get our passions up, because I feel like it was between him and I at the time, right? So I don't want to mention, but again, it's nothing racist. It was just the idea of he was judging other Masons and basically saying that he was being a better Mason than them, which I did not like. And so, I did not, I guess I could say, he said, he gives certain Masons a pass, which I didn't appreciate. Because to me, it felt like, who is anybody to give anybody else a pass, right? So that was the thing, and I took that personally, because the idea of, like, who are you to give me it? It became a whole thing. So, but yeah, looking back, we were both probably took it too seriously. But yeah, sometimes, passions just grow. I was also exhausted, I remember, because I'd come off like a crazy couple weeks of Freemasonry and work and everything else. I was just so tired. The point is, look, Freemasons aren't perfect people. And sometimes, despite our best efforts, we'll get passionate about things, which is okay. But I think within Freemasonry, one of the greatest strengths of it is that you have your moment, and then the next day, cooler heads prevail. And you can either, formally apologize, or you just, like, when it came to actually that political disagreement, I don't think they ever actually apologized, like, formally to one another. Well, it was a whole thing about, it was just a whole thing. And, but the point is, you move on. Like, I don't know if the two brothers who got into the disagreement, again, were separated about politics, ever formally apologized to one another. But I have seen them in lodge together, and I have seen them be, cordial to one another and at least respectful of one another. Whether they like each other or not, I have no idea. But, if you were a first-time visitor to lodge and you saw them together, you wouldn't think that they had ever got into a fight. You wouldn't know. So, you can apologize or not apologize. You just shake hands and move on with your lives and move on with your life and move on with your Masonic duties. And so, yeah. So again, I've never actually seen anybody throw hands or get into a fight. I've seen some disagreements get very loud and have some brothers step in between. And, I think one of the greatest lessons in Freemasonry should be the ability for brothers to disagree, sometimes very strongly, only to then, take a step back and find common ground. And again, I think that's just a mature, well, it was this attitude or this idea of what like should be done and shouldn't be done. Um, like this idea of like to be a Freemason, you should do this and not this, right? So like I would consider what I'm doing right now to be part of my Masonic commitments and be part of what it is to be a Freemason. He would say you shouldn't do this, you should do this. It's just different ideas of what it is to be a Freemason, which is perfectly fine. My concern is always when you start to judge others for not fitting into your view of Freemasonry, which is a mistake I've made, right? Um, in the past, and this is something I've struggled with, the idea of there's the way I do Freemasonry, which is correct. And if others are not doing that, then they're doing Freemasonry incorrectly and judging them for it. And that's something I had to learn to change because my judgments aren't always fair, right? As someone who doesn't have a family, doesn't have a wife, doesn't have a kid, maybe has a little bit more time for Freemasonry than others, I have to be careful that I'm not judging others for maybe not living up to what I think Freemasonry should be. And so, anyways, as someone who made that mistake, I felt that this person was making that same mistake. And maybe I was also seeing a little bit of myself in him, and that pissed me off. I think usually what we most push against is when we see parts of ourselves we struggle with in other people. We can be harsher on them. So, again, not physically fight. I've never seen a physical fight, but have disagreements. It happens, but of course it's going to happen, James. I mean, we're human beings, right? Anybody who thinks they're joining Freemasonry and suddenly there's some new enlightened person who never gets angry or never fights or whatever it is, no. But what you can do, hopefully within Freemasonry, is learn how to control and subdue your passions, if not in the moment, the next day when cooler heads can prevail. Um, Well, no. I mean, the beautiful thing about Freemasonry is we should all get along. There can be friendly rivalries, mystical. Certainly, there can be friendly rivalries in Freemasonry, which is one of the things I enjoy. Like, I remember I used to do this, we used to have this baseball tournament, and we're trying to bring it back where it'd be different lodges would create their own teams. And so there's the friendly rivalry of who's the better team, who's the better lodge. You sometimes have junior wardens will have these rivalries about like um, who makes the better food, who has a better chili. But obviously, the beautiful thing about it is you can visit. Even York and Scottish has those friendly rivalries, right? Friendly rivalries. Um, Adherence to the square, that's it, square conduct. If not at the moment, you apologize and move on the next day. York versus Scottish as well, right? We wear the apron right in the middle, CR7 King. I think I'm starting to get you to be more supportive of Freemasonry. Who knows? Maybe I'm working. Maybe it's working. Definitely not Spartacus Freedomist, who apparently is not going to be on the side of Freemasonry. You should not ban all secret societies. However, Freemasonry is not a secret society. It's a society with secrets, which is the thing I love about it. It's not in itself a secret society. Well, Isaac Wise is wrong. People become Freemasons by approaching a Masonic Lodge. So you approach a Masonic Lodge and you express your interest in joining. Um, that's the first step. Yes, well, that's true. I got to become cryptic so I can shoot fireballs from the Dew Guard. That would be a lot of fun. I'm working on it. Well, then you got to join the York, Mr. Keeps. You join the York and you get there first and you can show me afterwards. Actually, no, you shouldn't because you should never reveal the secrets of a body within Freemasonry unless another person is a member of that same body. So don't. I would hate to acquire the fireball information improperly. illicitly. Though when I say that, it sounds like I'm talking about like the whiskey. Um, yeah, that's awesome, Dark Codes. By the way, Dark Codes, please hit like and subscribe. Well, there will always be harmony in Lodge. There will always be disharmony amongst people. One of the beautiful things about Freemasonry is it teaches us how to deal with that disharmony in a healthy and mature way. Um, right? And by the way, when I say there will always be disharmony in people, I don't just mean disharmony between people. I mean disharmony in people. There are parts of myself within which I am in disharmony, within which I don't like and want to be better, and I try to work on. And again, I think Freemasonry can maybe give us some templates on how to not simply avoid fighting or resolve disputes between membership, but how to avoid fighting ourselves and within ourselves and find harmony within ourselves and work on those aspects of ourselves that we find disharmonious. Um, Spartacus, Freedominist, no fighting in the war room. Dr. Strangelove. I don't like to put people in timeout, Spartacus. I'm gonna be ending this stream soon because I got to get back to sleep because I am exhausted. But I don't usually put people in timeout. Having said that, if you keep on saying the same things, I might put you in timeout because at a certain point it gets disinteresting or uninteresting to say the same things over and over again. There may or may not be mystical. You got to join to find out. Joining Freemasonry is a leap of faith. However, to approach the Masonic Lodge, there is no password. If you want to approach the Masonic Lodge, you just go knock on the door, express your interest in joining, right? You don't need any passwords or special knowledge. You don't even need necessarily a desire to join to approach the Masonic Lodge and express your interest. You just need a desire to learn more. Um, well, I think, look, if you're a Freemason, you should not be treasonous. Freemasonry teaches us, amongst other things, the value of, loving one's country and civic duty and citizenship. Hello, Rondo. Thank you for being here. Courtney, as always, love having you here. Thank you so much for being here. Congrats on the hat. That's very cool. All right, guys, I will see you all soon. I will do a 1 a.m. stream tonight. So hopefully I will see you then. All right, talk to y'all later. Bye.